Hey everybody, I'm here with Brett Welcome of Springfield Fight Club down in Springfield, Missouri. They've come to Kicksite here recently. We're here to kind of learn about the gym, learn about Brett and his history, and just wanted to ask Brett a few questions about his history in Jiu-Jitsu and kind of what prompted him to start the gym. He's done great things down here in Springfield. We're excited to be serving him and love to learn more about what kind of brought him into the space. Brett, tell us a little bit about what kind of got you into Jiu-Jitsu to start with.
Okay, well, probably the same as almost everybody else. Seeing Hoist Gracie beat people that it didn't look like he had any business beating is what got me into Jiu-Jitsu. So I started off the same as every other kid in the 70s and 80s. I was a big Bruce Lee fan, and I was a big Muhammad Ali fan. I had a next door neighbor who was a pro boxer. And so I would go over after school and hang out with him, and he would teach me how to box. And so I wanted to be a boxer. But then my dad moved us to Anchorage, Alaska. And so I no longer got to see my boxing buddy. And I wanted to get started in another boxing gym, and my mom couldn't find one. And so I said, well, then I want to do Kung Fu like Bruce Lee. So she signed me up at a place, and I found out that I was doing judo. So I got to do judo for about a year and a half, and then a bunch of the kids that were doing judo went down to the university and would do wrestling. You know, found out that I really liked fighting a lot. And we moved around a bit, and then we got down into the lower 48, and I finally got to do karate. Found out that I didn't really care for them as much as judo and wrestling and boxing. But that was what we had. Did that for about 6 or 7 years, and then I was also a professional musician. I was playing a bunch, so I'd go out on the road.
Jeez.
And then when I got back into Springfield, I would train Muay Thai for 2 or 3 months, and then go back out on the road again. Did that for a couple of years. So I really thought of myself as like a boxer and kickboxer who wrestled and did a little judo. And then the UFC came out, and that was in the early 90s. And nobody could figure out why kickboxers couldn't knock this friggin' Brazilian guy out, you know. And so I figured, well, I'm not married to Muay Thai. So, you know, we start trying to find Jiu-Jitsu, me and a couple of buddies. Couldn't find anything. Ran across a guy who was doing Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. He was a bouncer at a bar. He had a dojo. So we were training and ran into a guy who brought us something called the New England Handbook of Scientific Wrestling. So we put a group together, and we would go to the YMCA, borrow gymnastics mats, and work on submission wrestling. We did that for a few years until I ran into somebody while I was lifting weights, and he was wearing a Naga shirt. So we started talking, and he said, I've started training at a brand new place in town, and it's called Springfield Fight Club. So you should check it out. The Fight Club had been around for about a year at that point. So I did not start Fight Club.
Okay.
I actually came on board a year or a year and a half after.
Okay.
And found Jiu-Jitsu and fell in love with it. Gabe, my partner, the other owner of Fight Club, he pretty much helped start Fight Club with the original owner, Rick Weimer.
Okay.
Rick was an ex-Marine, ex-police officer. He was DEA agent at the time. And he was training with a Brazilian by the name of Daniel Montana de Lima, and from Rio de Janeiro. He's a black belt under Carlos Gracie Jr.
Okay.
And that was in Kansas. And Rick moved down here and then wanted to fight NHB, which was what it was called at the time, No Holds Barred, right? Or Vale Tudo.
Yep.
It was before it was called MMA.
Sure.
And so Rick wanted to fight. So he wanted to put together a group of guys that he could train with in order to fight. So he started Springfield Fight Club as, I think he had just gotten his purple belt. So it started as a jiu-jitsu gym, but it was primarily a gym for fighting. And that was that was more the environment, you know, when I started, you know, when all of this was going on. Really the only people who got into jiu-jitsu, it seemed, were people who were fighters and
Sure.
wanted to fight better, or people who wanted to learn how to fight, you know.
Brings an interesting question though. So clearly things have changed in Jiu-Jitsu as a whole, right?
Yes.
But tell me more a little bit about how things have evolved here. Have you always been at this location?
No,
Okay.
no. So we started off and this was before I joined. They were doing evenings and weekends at a karate school. And then there was another garage. I don't remember where that one was. And then they had a little spot downtown on Atlantic and Broadway, a really seedy area. And we had like puzzle mats stacked 2 or 3 deep on the floors. really, really small. I think if you had 15 or 20 people on the mats, you were kicking people in the eye socket, you know, when you were rolling. And then we took on a partner. It didn't work very well. Then he built a really nice big location with a cage inside of it and all of that. Then we moved to a spot just north, one building north of where we are now.
Okay.
We were there for a couple of years and outgrew that, and then we've been in this location since I think about 2010.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So the business, all told, how many years?
About 25 years.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how it's evolved, not just in location, but just like in your approach. Clearly, we're here tonight. You got a ton of kids on the mat right now. So tell us a little bit about like just the way you've approached the business of jiu-jitsu and how it's changed over the 20 plus years you've been doing it.
So that's the thing is, for better or for worse, we don't really approach it as a business. You know, we for us, you know, Gabe has a full-time business. I have another full-time business, and this is a labor of love for us. You know, so we train to train. We teach for other people to train. If we make money, cool. That was never the intent of it to begin with. You know, we just wanted to be able to keep the doors open and to have a great training environment. And so, you know, because we don't rely on it as a business, I think we don't really feel the pressures of having to do certain things to up membership or anything else like that. Of course, you know, if we increase membership, that's great.
Sure.
But I don't think that's something that Gabe and I really think about on a daily basis. We just want to train. And we just want to grow our students, grow their capabilities.
I see.
You know. So.
Tell me more about that, like from a coaching perspective. You do a good bit of classes.
Yes.
Coaching yourself. So, like your approach as a coach, I guess and as you mentioned early on, it was no holds barred. It was a lot of cages.
Oh yeah.
Right. Well, now you've got a ton of kids out here. I mean, obviously, you can see the evolution of jiu-jitsu being more encompassing of all ages, all kinds, all types. So maybe talk to me a little bit about how you approach that as a coach.
We have the kids, and so then the kids, you'll have the kids that need hobbies, need direction. You have some kids that need self-defense, and you have some kids that want to compete, or their parents want them to compete. And so that's just a microcosm, the same as with the adults. You know, we'll have a certain stream of our jiu-jitsu or our kickboxing students that want to compete. I have some that just like the brotherhood or the kind of the community, I guess, of it, and we have the ones that want to be pro fighters, and there's some that want to be amateur fighters. You know, so it's like you just have to have an environment where you can cultivate multiple different types of students. You know, you have to be able to. So how do you have a 45-year-old, you know, professional and a father training alongside a pro MMA fighter, and then make the class be something valuable to both of them?
Do you find that challenging or fulfilling?
Yes, but in a fun way.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's always my thing, because I'm old, you know. I'm not a spring chicken like you. Right? I'm an old guy. I have no ACLs.
I can hear that.
You know, my body is a wreck, and I still want to roll with everybody all the time. And so my approach to things is I try to approach super advanced fundamentals all the time. You know, so it's really fun. We'll go both directions. I tend to be mechanically minded, so that's always fun for me, is looking at white belt sweeps and try to perfect them to where mechanically they cannot fail.
Yeah.
And then, you know, whereas Gabe is like, all right, let's stay on the cutting edge of everything that's happening. You know, the newest K-guard entries.
Sure.
You know, let's look at you know, all of the different variations of leg locks. And, you know, so it's a fun balance. And then, of course, we have Nathan, who runs the MMA program and the kickboxing program, and he's like the most motivational speaker type of, you know, get out there and push sort of personal coach.
Yeah,
that's
what's great about it.
It's a really fun, we have a really fun kind of 3-direction push.
You can just feel the passion you still have after all these years. How has that changed? Like your passion for jiu-jitsu, all these evolutions and the changes, and like how has your interest and your passion for it evolved or changed?
That one's easy because before it was a passion for me getting better.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, I have to get into jiu-jitsu. I've got to get better at this thing. I got to get better at that thing. I got to work on my pressure. I got to do this or that and the other thing. And now, you know, I'm in my, you know, early 50s, and been doing this for 20 something years. And I was like, if I don't roll tonight, I don't even care. I will roll because it's fun, but if I don't roll, I don't care. I don't feel like I've missed out on anything. It's like now I'm not so excited about improving myself as much as I'm excited about, if I show a detail tonight and I see the look on somebody's face and it connected with them,
Yep.
and it's like a breakthrough moment for them, that makes my whole night, that everything was worth it.
Yeah. How about challenges? Any challenges that jump out at you, whether it be as a business owner or a coach? What kind of challenges are you facing?
Just there's always more gyms, more competition all the time. Fighters are getting so much better. So from the MMA perspective, tremendously challenging. Then again, the challenge of how do you direct classes in such a way that is beneficial to pro fighters and a mom and a professional dad and a college athlete and a guy who used to wrestle in college, and all of that. It's always going to be challenging, but that's a good thing, right? Because that's like jiu-jitsu in general.
Sure.
It's always challenging. You never run out of things to learn.
Just one more question. I know you've got plenty to do today, so I appreciate your time. Where do you see the future going, both in jiu-jitsu and in your gym specifically?
More no-gi, obviously. I think, although I don't know. I mean, things are cyclical all the time. Just greater integration of wrestling and jiu-jitsu. I'm hoping that as MMA becomes more prevalent, you'll see jiu-jitsu get more violent again. I think we kind of saw a drift toward a lot of sitting, butt scooting, lapel play and stuff like that, where the stuff that I didn't like because it no longer took the fighting aspect of jiu-jitsu into account. And I think the prevalence of wrestling in no-gi jiu-jitsu is erasing a lot of that, and I think kind of the slide backwards in efficacy of jiu-jitsu and MMA is going to be ultimately good for jiu-jitsu, because people are going to have to confront the idea that what a lot of us in jiu-jitsu have been doing is not effective for fighting.
Brett, thank you for your time. I have 100 other questions I want to ask you, but I want to be respectful of all the people. Huge Matt out there. He's got a ton of people training right now. But Brett, pleasure. It's our pleasure to serve you. Thank you for taking the time with us.
Thank you for the shirt.
Our pleasure. That's the easy part. We're looking forward to helping you, and congrats on the 20-some years, and let's make it 25 more.
Yeah, absolutely.